Why is China so keen on courting Djibouti? We'll explain. Orlando marks the one-year anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting that left 49 people dead. And a U.S. high school is the first in the nation to provide sports hijabs. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Now, we'll have those stories in a moment. But first, the U.S. pursuit to stamp out terrorism has taken it to Somalia, where a U.S. airstrike has destroyed a main training and command post of the Al-Shabaab terrorist group. Now, the Pentagon says Sunday's strike, in response to attacks in Somalia by the Al-Qaeda-linked extremist group, killed 8 militants. The base was in the Middle Juba region in southern Somalia. That's according to the Office of Somalia President Mohamed Abdullahi. Well, for more on this operation in East Africa by the U.S. and its allies, VOA's Carla Babb joins us live from the Pentagon. Now, Carla, what more can you tell us about this operation?
Well, Vincent, we are hearing that those 8 militants were part of a command and logistics node in the Middle Juba region, which is a stronghold of Al-Shabaab. We're hearing that this is the first time that the U.S. military has struck Al-Shabaab militants with a drone strike since President Donald Trump took office. And this is actually the first time officials are telling me that they use the new authorities granted by President Trump to the U.S. military in the region. Those new authorities basically mean that before, the United States had to have self-defense related strikes. They couldn't just strike offensively. That's not the case now. As you can see with this strike, they used an offensive strike to hit this command node, and they will continue to do so in the future, they say.
Now, well, these fellows may have been killed, but the question is, were there any high-value targets at this camp?
Well, Vincent, that's a great question, because local reports had said that the deputy commander of Al-Shabaab was in the area, but that is not what I'm hearing from the Pentagon. I'm hearing that the command and logistics node itself was the target, not any high-value individual. But this is an example of how no matter how big or how small a camp may be, the United States is looking to defeat terror across the globe. And that's why the Somali president once again reiterated and called on Al-Shabaab members to lay down their arms in return for amnesty if they renounce violence.
And in fact, last week after the attack at camp, he said he will retaliate. Carla, there are operations ongoing across the globe, and we're hearing that U.S. forces actually came under attack twice over this last weekend in Afghanistan. Tell us a little more about that.
Well, that's right, Vincent. It was a very busy time in Afghanistan over the last few days. Just today, a U.S. and Afghan convoy came under attack. They were hit by a roadside bomb, and then after the bomb went off, they started getting fire. They returned fire. 3 militants were killed, and fortunately, no U.S. casualties there. However, that wasn't the case. A couple days ago on Saturday, we learned that 3 U.S. service members were killed and another was wounded in what we like to call a green-on-blue incident. That's when one of the Afghan partners actually turned his gun on the United States forces and killed those 3 conventional soldiers that were there. I'm hearing from my sources here that they were part of the 101st out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. That's where they're originally based. And we are not getting all the details yet. I'm sure that's going to be coming out over the next couple of days as an investigation is underway. But once again, 3 more killed in Nangarhar province.
Well, Carla, thank you very much. That's our VOA Pentagon correspondent, Carla Babb, reporting live from the Pentagon. Now, the U.S. has jumped into the diplomatic spat between Qatar and a group of countries led by Saudi Arabia and Egypt. At least a half a dozen nations have cut ties with the tiny Gulf country due to its reported funding of terrorism. The United States could have a lot to lose, in fact, if it gets pulled too far into the controversy. Once again, is VOA Pentagon correspondent Carla Babb.
For Qatar, we want you back among the unity of responsible nations.
President Donald Trump once again slammed the tiny oil-rich Gulf nation of Qatar for being a, quote, historical funder of terrorism. But Qatar is a strategic U.S. ally, and its Al Udeid Air Base hosts America's biggest concentration of military personnel in the Middle East.
We're talking about combat aircraft that are flying over the skies of Iraq and Syria dropping bombs. We're talking about all the reconnaissance aircraft that are assessing where the targets are and how well previous strikes have done. We're talking about airborne command and control aircraft that make sure we don't run into Russian or Syrian jets inadvertently, and keep an eye, on Iran and others as well.
Secretary of State Rex Tillerson urged Qatar to address the terrorist financing concerns and said those blockading Qatar need to stop.
The blockade is hindering U.S. military actions in the region and the campaign against ISIS.
Tillerson appeared to contradict Pentagon statements claiming counter-Islamic State operations had not been affected by the regional dispute. After Tillerson's remarks, the Pentagon issued a new statement saying that while operations had not been interrupted or curtailed, the situation is hindering the military's ability for longer-term planning. The Pentagon said it has a number of contingency plans should its troops and aircraft need to leave the Gulf nation.
We are not where we were in 2003. There are other alternatives now in the theater that were not there 10 years ago or so.
But analysts agree that even the best contingency plan would likely disrupt counter-terror operations in the region, since moving that many people and all their equipment could take months. Carla Babb, VOA News, The Pentagon.
Well, the Horn of Africa's strategic location at the southern end of the Red Sea and alongside the Gulf of Aden has placed one of its countries, Djibouti, in the enviable situation of being wooed by a number of major powers. As VOA senior analyst Jeffrey Young explains, China has aggressively engaged Djibouti for both commercial and military reasons.
On the Horn of Africa, at the center of a major power chess game, is the Republic of Djibouti. Barely over 23,000 square kilometers in size, this highly sought-after place has become the host for a number of nations' military bases. Along with 2 U.S. military facilities, Djibouti is also home to a major Chinese naval and shipping installation slated to open later this year. The work on this facility, which reportedly cost $400 million to build, began with a January 2016 announcement that Beijing secured a $100 million annual lease from Djibouti for 10 years. At the time, China said Djibouti would enable Chinese troops to better fulfill escort missions and make new contributions to regional peace and stability. The importance of China's first significant base beyond its mainland is detailed by research group the Atlantic Council analyst Bronwyn Bruton.
Just as Djibouti is the base for all American operations in Africa, it's going to become the base for all Chinese operations in Africa. Perhaps more important to China, it's also it's a prime location for guaranteeing China's economic interests. And these are quite legitimate concerns. There's no reason why China shouldn't be able to ensure the safety of its trade ships coming back and forth to Europe through the Gulf of Aden.
Analysts note that the base underscores China's commitment to anti-piracy operations in the region's critical maritime choke point and its peacekeeping operations in Sudan's Darfur and South Sudan. The value of the Djibouti base for China's global commerce is described by retired U.S. Ambassador David Shin.
Keep in mind that that facility is a dual-use facility. It's both commercial and military. They make no excuses about the military component of it, but in terms of the ultimate usage of the facility, I think there will probably be more commercial usage than military usage.
Because this port facility is very close to both U.S. military bases in Djibouti, its ability to observe and listen is not lost on analysts, such as the American Enterprise Institute's Catherine Zimmerman.
One of the reasons why the location of the Chinese base is of such concern, because placing it right next to the United States naval base and frankly the hub of our counterterrorism operations will give China that insight into what we're doing that otherwise it wouldn't have.
Beijing had already endeared itself to Djiboutian President Ismail Omar Guelleh by building a railway linking Djibouti with Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and making a number of other infrastructure investments. And in return for basing rights, China gets a huge priority fulfilled. Again, Ambassador David Shin.
One is to ensure that the Chinese Navy, the PLAN, continues to operate far from Chinese shores so that it can test its equipment, its ships, its personnel, gain experience, in order to become a blue water navy, and that is the ultimate goal.
President Gele was recently quoted as saying, "No one but the Chinese offers a long-term partnership in Djibouti." And with its base nearly ready, Beijing's ability to project both hard and soft power in Africa goes up significantly. Jeffrey Young, VOA News.
And now back in Washington, U.S. lawmakers are set to hear another round of testimony in the Russia probe when Attorney General Jeff Sessions appears before a Senate panel this week. As VOA Michael Bowman reports, Sessions, a former senator who campaigned vigorously on Donald Trump's behalf, will speak as lawmakers debate tougher sanctions against Russia for its interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election.
I have now decided to recuse myself.
As a top Trump confidant, Attorney General Sessions recused himself from the Russia probe. But senators have questions for America's top law enforcement officer after former FBI Director James Comey hinted at additional reasons to wall off Sessions from the investigation.
We also were aware of facts that I can't discuss in an open setting that would make his continued engagement in a Russia-related investigation problematic.
Sessions came under fire for failing to disclose contacts with Russia's ambassador, something he denied during his confirmation hearing.
I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians.
The White House says no evidence has emerged the president personally colluded with Moscow to sway last year's election, and disputes Comey's claim that Trump pressured him to end an investigation of former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn.
No collusion, no obstruction.
Some Republican lawmakers agree.
I don't see that amounts to obstruction. I don't see any evidence of intent to obstruct. I don't see any indication that there was even the potential for corruption here or for obstruction of justice.
But a federal prosecutor fired by Trump sees things differently.
That's an incredibly serious thing if people think that the President of the United States can tell heads of law enforcement agencies, based on his own whim or his own personal preferences or friendships, that they should or should not pursue particular criminal cases against individuals. That's not how America works.
Meanwhile, a bipartisan push is underway in the Senate to punish Russia for election meddling.
It's time to respond to Russia's attack on American democracy with strength and resolve, with common purpose, and with action. There is no greater threat to our freedoms than attacks on our ability to choose our own leaders free from foreign interference.
One measure under consideration would impose new U.S. sanctions on Russia's energy sector and other areas. Another would make it harder to ease existing sanctions against Moscow.
The president and administration officials have demonstrated that they're willing to consider lifting sanctions on Russia in exchange for vague, yet to be articulated concessions, if any concessions at all. Congress ought to have the power to review any decision made by this administration before sanctions on Russia are lifted.
The measures are being offered as amendments to a sanctions bill targeting Iran's ballistic missile program and support for terrorism. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
What do you want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover? Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends also. Check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Coming up, commemorating a horrific act of violence against the LGBT community with hope and love. Stay with us.
I wanted to present music and a side of American culture that is most important to me, that is a part of who I am. They're going to get some incredible performances. That's one of the things I love, bringing these artists in so you can get to see them do what they do. It's soul music, and that's what music is. It's that which comes from the soul.
Officials in Orlando, Florida want the one-year anniversary of the shooting at Pulse nightclub to be marked with acts of love and kindness. June 12th has officially been named Orlando United Day, commemorating the horrific attack on the city's gay and lesbian community, where 49 people died. As viewers Jeff Swyckold reports, residents of the city turned out in a show of unity during weekend events to mark the tragedy.
They ran in remembrance. 1 year after the largest single attack on the gay and lesbian community in U.S. history killed 49, hundreds gathered in an Orlando park to run and remember the victims. Barbara Poma was the owner of Pulse nightclub, where the shooting occurred.
What's different over the last year is everything. Everything is different. Everything you do every day is different. Your heart is forever changed. Your life is forever changed. Your whole direction of life is changed.
At 2 a.m., 29-year-old Omar Mateen entered Pulse nightclub with an assault rifle and began shooting, killing 49 people and wounding 53. Mateen, who had a history of mental instability, had pledged allegiance to the Islamic State. The horrific violence of that night deeply scarred all segments of Orlando society. 15-year-old Madeline Ward lived across the street from Pulse and has nightmares about what she saw and heard that night.
And it's really just opened my eyes, showing me that we need to love everyone, because it's not, this is like, we're a bunch of different groups of people and we might all be different, but we're all the same in that we're human beings and we need to respect each other no matter who we love.
A year on, Orlando is a community that has come together. At a memorial featuring the Orlando Gay Chorus, a diverse group honored those lost. Dan Jones says the chorus is here to share a message of love and unity with all.
What the shooter was trying to do was destroy the LGBT community, and what he did was brought the LGBT community together, but also built bridges with other communities that we didn't have those bridges with before.
Those bridges have been on display at events during the past week. Last Saturday, Go Big Tees offered free T-shirts, food, and hugs in support of the LGBT community.
Thank you so much for coming.
Hundreds turned out for the food and to tie-dye their own T-shirts.
No, please come in.
Owner Hannah Zuck says the idea was to gather in love and support for all affected by the tragedy.
I think our community has grown together more, and it's been so beautiful to see the way everyone has unified and supported each other in the healing process.
Pulse nightclub has never reopened after the tragedy. Today it is a memorial to those who died, a place where people can stop by, leave a memento, and reflect.
It's a ring that was in a bag my sister bought for my birthday.
People like Mary Kelly and Taylor Caldwell.
We came here today because, at least for me, I'm really big in the LGBTQ community. And even if I wasn't, I think I would still come just because something like this should never happen. And
they're right, love conquers all.
It does. And I think the more people that we can draw here just shows that.
Yeah.
Jeff Swyckold, VOA News, Orlando, Florida.
Well, Kwame Nsia-Apau, known by his stage name, Ochiami Kwame, is a Ghanaian music artist. In 2009, he founded the Ochiami Kwame Foundation to raise public awareness on hepatitis B and to provide screening, prevention, and education to mitigate the disease in Ghana. Now, the foundation has initiated and sponsored the construction of a hepatitis B treatment facility in the Tamale region of Ghana. To tell us more about his foundation and music, I'm joined in studio by Ochiami Kwame. Welcome to our program.
Thank you.
Now, first, you have more titles than just being a hip-hop artist. Tell us a little more. You kind of got some other titles given to you.
Okay, yeah, so I'm the AU ambassador for Ghana, the AU champion for Ghana. I'm also a UNICEF father, super father ambassador, and I am the rap doctor, and then I am
And you have the key to the city.
And I have the key to the city of Cincinnati.
Cincinnati in the United States. Now, all this mostly because of your activism to fight hepatitis B.
Yes.
How did you get into it?
Okay, so in 2009, I went to the hospital to check my health status because I was falling sick in and out. And then I realized that the hepatitis, I did several types of tests, but the hepatitis test was expensive, it was $40. So I went to the doctor and I said, Kwame, this test is too expensive. So if we form an NGO, we could give the test for free. You know, and then I also saw that 1 out of every 6 Ghanaians is exposed to the virus, which means the prevalence rate is 15%. So we're looking at people who would never hear of the disease, or, you know, because in Ghana, most of the funds that go into health in the area of malaria, tuberculosis, HIV, and AIDS. You know,
not hepatitis.
No hepatitis. You know, so most of the NGOs were interested in hepatitis. So we decided to start to give free education to everybody. And every year we do 1,000 people. So for the past 8 years, we've done 8,000 people. We started with education, and then we started giving free screening. And then we saw that the 85% of the people who test negative go back into the risk zone. So we decided to vaccinate everybody who will be tested negative. So, and then we added the vaccination. And now we are moving into the area of buying medication for poor women who are hepatitis positive, because they take this medication that is so expensive, like $200. So every year we try to buy it to give it to as many people as possible.
Now, you've done a nice piece of music not long ago in collaboration with your kids, who I think do a better job than yourself.
Everybody's saying it.
We want to just, watch this video a little bit, and then you tell me a little bit about why you decided to do it that way.
Okay.
Let's watch this. It's called Sousing.
Sousing.
They say Souse is the new swing. We sousing. We sousing. We sousing. We sousing.
Na 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 na. Yeah. Global, we rep for Ghana. We don't slow, we just go.
Na 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 na. Yeah. Global, we rep for Ghana. We don't slow, we just go. My daddy's the my daddy's the my daddy's the my daddy's the my daddy. My daddy. Call me sad. Yes, I'm the sad. Or be from here, blowing over here, blowing over there. Samsung battery, blowing everywhere. I'm a fresh boy, no pimples, I give you my joy. Small dimples, my best of my grade. I'm good, sorry, I'm simple. I'm just don't say me in the
Now, first, this is fabulous. We have just a few seconds, but your daughter and son.
Yes.
Why did you decide to involve them, just very quickly?
You know, my wife is a working woman, so usually when she's gone to work, I'm stuck home with the kids because I have a more flexible, schedule. So sometimes I take them to the studio. I realized that they had a music talent as well. So one fine Sunday, I took them to my home studio and said, let's do music. So we actually started it off as something that we're doing for fun. And then we realized that the whole world is catching on to it, so we did a video and put it out there.
I think you've been a good father.
Yeah, thank you.
I think you've done a good job. Thanks a lot. It's really good that you're involved in this campaign. We wish you well.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing with us also your music.
All right.
Okay, that's Ochieng Kwame. He's a Ghanaian music artist and advocate for the elimination of hepatitis B. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Our U.S. high school is making it easier for Muslim girls to participate in sports. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. France affirmed its commitment to reinforce cooperation on security and climate change with Senegal as the country's president Macky Sall met his counterpart Emmanuel Macron in Paris. Up to 10,000 people in the South African coastal resort of Knysna have been evacuated as wildfires fanned by strong winds ripped through the town. the son of deposed Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, has been released by the armed group that took him captive in 2011. Finally, the Somalian capital Mogadishu has witnessed relative stability over the past weeks, due in part to the country's new security initiative. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54, and here is what's trending. There is a new gaming console in town. Microsoft on Sunday unveiled Xbox One X, billing it as the most powerful video console ever made and escalating a battle with market king PlayStation. The $499 product was built with the muscle for seamless play on ultra-high definition 4K televisions and will be available worldwide on November 7th. Microsoft is also courting players by working to make more popular games from earlier Xbox console versions playable on its latest hardware. The company also just launched a subscription service for Xbox, letting players pay a monthly fee for access to a video games library for its console. Well, next up, a Muslim student athletes at one of U.S. high school no longer have to be slowed down by worries that their headscarves might fall off. Enduring High School in Portland, Maine, is providing sport hijabs with the goal of making Muslim girls comfortable and boosting their participation in sport. The high school is believed to be the first in the United States to provide hijabs for Muslim athletes, as opposed to students providing their own headscarves. Now, the move is part of a trend around the world of more Muslim women finding ways to play sports while wearing hijabs. And finally, Sweden's cyborgs are on the move. The country's state-owned rail operator SJ is now allowing passengers to use microchip implants rather than conventional tickets. SJ claims to be the first travel company in the world to enable passengers to use microchip implants to validate their tickets. It's currently being tested just among SJ prior members. Biohacking, including implanting microchips under the skin, is becoming increasingly popular in Sweden. And that is what is trending today. Well, and that's our show for today. Now, we want to leave you with more of Ochame Kwame's song, South Sing. Have a good night.
Global, we rep for Ghana. We don't slow, we just go. Global, we rep for Ghana. We don't slow, we just go. But the big things no. Should be at the golf forget to kill things no. I say come time at cheap, sing it. Me down goddamn at tea, bring it. Bringing you the bells of the future, ring it. Almost smarter than my teacher, sing it. Na 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 na. Yeah 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 yeah. Global, we rep for Ghana. We don't slow, we just go.
Welcome to English in a Minute. When you travel, you take things with you and pack them into bags and suitcases. All those things are called baggage.
Baggage? How is your friend Lily doing? I haven't seen her lately.
Lily? I stopped hanging out with her.
Why? What happened?
Nothing happened. She's just